Yeah, I think so there's a few things there. So when you do the crazy eights, it's typically on the second day, right? So if the first day is just like a knowledge dump of like everybody's background expertise, figuring out what problem you're going to solve,
documenting stuff,
documenting, it's tough. It's a lot of listening to all the perspectives, so you have as much empathy for the end user that you're designing for. So the second day, the crazy eights really is kind of like the the main activity of the day. So one thing that I always have found is people say they shy away from participating because I'm not a good designer. How do you encourage them to participate? Like, what do you do to someone that's like, this is somebody that always sprint facilitators have to watch out for, is kind of like the negative person, the cynical person that's like not willing to participate, but their opinion matters and you want to pull them in and encourage them to.
Cynical person, that's usually a synonym for the most British in the room. I mean, one of the feedback is I can't draw, because when you're asking people to come up with sketches and drawing, and there's a TED talk about teaching people to draw, where an illustrator just basically gets the whole audience to follow him along, and they all start laughing because they can all draw exactly what he draws when he just it's a step by step. But we say, like, if you can draw a circle, square, or triangle, then you can draw, and that really does, help give people confidence. And again, it's like you're just trying to get an idea across. So even if you do a basic mobile illustration, like, just a square, and you write notes in it, that's sufficient to just start the concept. And then you say, okay, how would you?
Yeah, the notes, adding notes to like supplement the design, even though you only have like a minute. If you're doing an 8-minute crazy 8, 1 minute per block, it goes so quick, especially if you've never done it before. One or two words to kind of like give somebody else the visual cues to understand what's going on. That's such a good tip.
Yeah, and then after that, you share it with everyone. People give comments, maybe vote on stuff, like they do dot voting, so the little sticky dots. And then once you hear everyone else, then you say, okay, again, it's like now you're refining. So there's this concept that was developed by the British Council, which was like a lobbying group in the UK for design for the government. And they come up with this idea of the double diamond. So it's like where in the first day you're diverging, coming up with all these different concepts, and then you slowly start converging on the final thing. And so you're soaking up all the information the first day. The second day you're trying to start diverge, but you're still listening to people. So the second round of crazy eights you might do after you've heard everyone is, again, it's like condensing down to the final concept. And then after that you might take one idea where you'll say, okay, right now I'm going to make this a bit more comprehensive. And that's when the whole team starts diverging, converging on a singular idea. So on the Wednesday, that's all, the third day rather, that's what you're basically doing, converging on the one or two concepts that you want to test. Now, what I did with a design sprint in Berlin with some food delivery company was I introduced something which is not typically done in design sprints, but the Luma Institute did it, and I really liked it when they did it, and that's what they call paper prototyping. And I found that was amazing for lifting people's energy up again. So what we did as a paper prototype is, imagine literally you're drawing paper, like a very basic interface on paper with a Sharpie, and then one person pretends to be the computer, so it's the entire user flow journey. One person is the researcher who's asking or speaking to the person, and then you sit a person down to actually go through the steps. So they're physically pressing the piece of paper as if it's a button, whatever the square is.
So it's like as low fidelity of a prototype as you can get.
Absolutely. If you go onto YouTube, you can find that really, really great.
That's awesome.
So some people do it with cardboards where they'll fold things out.
I've seen the ones where you could literally, like when it's like a vertical scroll, they like pull the page down like through.
You can go to town with that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Like at the Luma thing, we were designing a wearable device that gave pleasure and pain. And so we made this paper watch, and then when we put it on the user and they said, okay, you press a button and something good happens, we'd stroke their arm. Everyone started laughing because it's quite funny. And then when they designed it, we got like, what you stir with coffee, you start jabbing them.
Yeah.
And just to see like, if I press this, what the interaction is. I mean, it's quite funny and out there. But I found it really useful. Like in the design sprint that we did in Berlin, a team had chosen a flow that they wanted to go with. When they did the paper prototyping, they realized how badly that flow worked. And so they reiterated. So at that moment, it was like the eureka moment for some of those designers. I think, okay, this is the right thing or this isn't. Because you're breaking down a design flow into its basic things. And it really makes you realize like how important it is to be like brevity and being concise in like a user journey. And so I liked introducing it at that point before they go into more high fidelity stuff. So it's almost like it's a sanity check, a usability check. And you can do that with people in the room. Like if you've got different teams or someone else from your company who's not in the design sprint to run through some of these things, that's sufficient, like 2 or 3 of those. And you can iterate the paper prototypes because it's so low fidelity. Like you can do that in 20 minutes. And then from that point, the team is pretty confident that as a user journey, it works. Now let's make something that's believable. And so day 4 is usually the prototyping day because it takes a lot of time to make something that's...
It takes a ton of time, like especially...
high fidelity.
My favorite version of it is, especially if it's like a web interface, is just using like PowerPoint or Google Slides to basically just link call to action buttons, and then you can emulate what the experience would look like. It's great. Sometimes you have amazing like rock star, front end developers that can spin stuff up. I don't recommend that though because it could be a sunk cost, and I also think it's like isolating to the rest of the people. And it's harder to contribute in real time.